Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to be talking about The Wiz, which came out in 1978, directed by Sidney Lumet and stars Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, Nipsey Russell, Ted Ross, Richard Pryor, and Mabel King. When Harlem schoolteacher Dorothy Gale is miraculously whisked away to an urban fantasy land called Oz, she goes in search of the Wiz, a wizard who can help her get back to Manhattan along with the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. The film, of course, is an adaptation of the 1974 Broadway musical The Wiz, which is an African-American retelling of L. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, with music and lyrics by Charlie Smalls, and the book was written by William F. Brown. Now, full disclaimer before I continue on with the review, I have not seen The Wiz. I have, of course, heard of it thanks to this film adaptation, but for the most part, I have never got the chance to see the musical itself. Believe it or not, my biggest exposure to this film is the Nostalgia Critic episode, which I watched years ago. He did not like the film, really, and of course the film did very poorly at the box office, as well as getting poor reviews when it first came out. Although I am aware that has become something of a cult classic among Michael Jackson fans and Wizard of Oz fans. So when it comes to my personal opinion of the film, whether I side with the critics or with the fans, I'm somewhere in the middle. However, I do have some positives that I want to talk about first. While I'll always prefer the Kansas setting for Dorothy's World and the fantastical setting for the Land of Oz, I will commend the film for being a very unique interpretation of the story, especially with how Dorothy lives in Harlem, and when she gets transported to the Land of Oz, it's more like a dystopian and surreal version of New York City. This, of course, leads me to give a little bit of praise to production designer Tony Walton, who created these sets to bring this version of Oz to life, such as the Munchkin Land set, which is more like a graffiti-riddled skate park, as well as the lair of the Wicked Witch of the West, which is a sweatshop. Tony Walton was also the film's costume designer, and I've got to say that he did some pretty good work in here. Some of my favourite examples include the Scarecrow. This is a very unique Scarecrow design, as he is made from garbage, and a gimmick that he has, he actually pulls quotes from his chest, which is pretty fun. There's also the Tin Man, who is, in this version, is actually a robot from a rundown amusement park. And, of course, Tony Walton is also responsible for single-handedly creating the most unique interpretation of the Wicked Witch of the West. I mean, good lord, look at that. As for the performances from the main cast, some I liked more than others, but I will highlight some of the ones I quite liked the most. Michael Jackson I really liked as the Scarecrow. He can sing well, he can dance well. And Ted Ross and Mabel King as the Cowardly Lion and Eveline, the Wicked Witch of the West, respectively, are also really good. And fun fact, they actually reprised their roles from the original stage musical, which is pretty neat. I also feel a similar way to the soundtrack in this film, and of course I'm also aware that a lot of the songs in this soundtrack were created for this film adaptation. But I will say that I do want to highlight some of the songs I liked. Of course, I liked Ease On Down the Road, which is a fan favourite. And of course, Don't Nobody Bring Me No Bad News, which is what the Wicked Witch of the West sings. That one's a real bop. And that is where my pros end. Now I gotta get into the stuff that I wasn't really exactly a fan of. Now earlier I did give a bit praise to the sets, but they do lack colour quite a bit. Like, you know, there are some moments where there's a bit of colour. For the most part, it looks pretty green. It can make the sets pretty ugly looking at times. And it also doesn't help that the direction by Sidney Lumet doesn't really leave a great impression on me, and it's not really a well-directed musical at all. Like, you know, a lot of the musical numbers are shot from far away, and the camera work is not really dynamic. Of course, like I mentioned, the soundtrack is a mixed bag, and a lot of the songs in this are very long ballads, and on more than one occasion, it can really slow the pacing down to a crawl at times, which, you know, really doesn't help. And lastly, and this is a bit of a big one, I am very mixed on Diana Ross as Dorothy Gale. For one, she is too old, like a 24-year-old kindergarten teacher. I don't know. And of course, a lot of the film she is very, whimpering and scared all the time, where she should just sort of act like a full-grown woman. But she can sing quite well, and she does bring a lot of the film's heart, so there's that. Overall, though, The Wiz is a flawed but interesting interpretation of the Wizard of Oz story, with some good performances, some good songs, and really interesting set design and costume design. But unfortunately, it does suffer from poor direction, a lack of color, some weird moments, and a very 50-50 performance from Diana Ross. Of course, I am also aware that there was a TV special of The Wiz, which came out in 2015. I am very interested in checking that one out, though, at some point. I might let you know at some point down the line. And that's it with my thoughts on The Wiz. Next time, I am going to be talking about another Oz cult classic, and it is one that I can consider myself a fan of, and that is 1985's Return to Oz. I am really excited to talk to you guys about that one. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to like and subscribe, you very well do so. Hope you all stay safe out there, and cheers.